Before we actually get into using these different features, I think it's necessary that we take at least some look at the body of the XC15 and see exactly how it's all laid out. Down here, for instance, is your memory card, your big memory card, which is the CFast 2 card. That's where your all your 4K goes. And down here is your SDXC card and your 1080, and also your slow motion is going to go on there as well. The XC15 actually has two menus. The first menu contains things that you would normally access a little bit less than the second menu. And the second menu is accessed by your little toggle switch or your little joystick there, and you can toggle up and down, back and forth through that, and you're going to be accessing these things more, I think, than you will the menu. But nevertheless, they're separated like that, and so that's the two menus. Try to think of them as two menus. And of course, besides accessing the second menu, your joystick, when you have when you have a viewfinder over your screen here where you can't access it by touch, then you can navigate anything with your joystick. Always press menu and you're back where you want to go. On the top of the camera, you see you have your various modes that you can select, shooting modes. This wheel here is a wheel that you can actually program. You can put the ISO or your f-stop or your shutter speed and control it from there if you want. When you're shooting in manual, you can decide which one you want to use to control everything. If you want the other two, you're going to access them in your second menu, activated by the toggle switch. There's your on-off button. Press it once and you're on. Press it again and you're off. And this little guy right here, this will enable you to access the footage that you've already shot, so you can preview it. Pretty cool. And here, that's not just for a camera. That's also going to be your video button. There is no separate video button on this camera. Different from the XC10, you have a connector here for your XLR microphones that are going to fit right up in here. So that's pretty much the top of the camera. Out in front is your lens. Duh, where else would it be? This is the zoom lens right here. This is your control. This is very nice and smooth. You can get very quick zooms and back and forth. And then here is your manual focus ring. Now this is a focus by wire system, so if you want to move far, instead of moving the wheel itself far, what you do is you make really quick movements one way or the other, and that will take you far. If you want to move slowly, it'll take you forever to get where you're going. And of course, with focus by wire, there is no such thing as being able to manually focus with muscle memory, because every time you turn the thing, it's going to be different. So quick movements are going to get you a long way in a very short amount of time. Slow movements, you're going to have to you can turn and turn and turn before you can actually get from one place to another in terms of the focus. That always drove me crazy on cameras, but I really love it on this camera, and I'll explain why later. Over on the left side, the first thing that really pops out are these three buttons right here. Here obviously is your manual focus and your autofocus. And then this button right here is programmed by Canon to be your display button. And down here, this button is programmed to be push AF. Notice the wording, push AF. We're going to talk about that in a second. These are very common things. I'm sure you know all about these, your HDMI and so on. I'm not going to open them. So anyway, there's a very thorough talking about all these features here in other videos. We don't need to waste our time with that. So those are the buttons here. Now these are programmable, And notice that this one is a little off color, and the reason it's off color is that I put a drop of 5-minute epoxy on that, clear epoxy, and you can see it's not really clear because it's kind of yellow. But anyway, the beauty of that is that it kind of pops up. Before I did that, it felt just like that button. So when I was shooting, I couldn't tell when I was shooting and behind the camera, I couldn't tell which one I was touching sometimes. So when I put that drop of epoxy on there, once it hardened, it's a nice big bump, so I know exactly where I am. As soon as I touch it, I know the autofocus is here, and I know that my other button down here is there. Now, I have reprogrammed these so they are not what they appear to be. This button right here, if I access it, what you're going to see is you're going to see the waveform. It's going to pop right up, and I use the waveform all the time to check my exposure, and I can toggle it on and off by pressing that. Down here, I have programmed it to be able to toggle on and off my neutral density filter that is internal in this camera. Well, I wish that they had two. Now, there's also one more program button we're going to talk about, but we have to go back to the back of the camera to do that. Okay, here we are, back to the back again. Our little joystick here, our menu button, and right up here there's something that says MAG. Now this is a button you would normally press if you were in manual focus to magnify the screen, and so then you could get a focus here in front. But I have reprogrammed it so it is now push autofocus, and I'm going to tell you why I did that rather than leave it on the side later on when we begin talking about the autofocus features of this camera. And this is pretty much all that really is necessary for us to talk about in terms of the layout and how things are put together on the body of the XC15. With that, I think we're ready to go on and to begin talking about certain functions and how they're kind of unique in the XC15.